When Samoans first began coming to the United States in the early 1900s, they were looking for a place to belong. They found home with family, and as those family circles grew, they found it again with their churches. Over time, as Samoans became part of life in America, many found themselves living between two cultures, connected to both, yet not fully at home in either. This place, Manuia, offers a place to land, a place to breathe, and a place to belong. Second Samoa is your home away from home. That I think is very important. You can't script these things so that it's nice and perfect. You have to live your life engaging that which is real. So, for example, I got up Saturday morning and they broke the news that our forces have hit Iran and they've killed the Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran, and a few other people around him. And I sat there and took the news in, and I said to myself, how can you be a Christian? How can you be a Christian in this state of violence? How can you be a Samoan Christian and have this thing happen in your life? What is the call? As a U.S. citizen, at some point, at some level, I have to receive as truthful that I was part of that bombing in Tehran, that the kinetic violence inflicted on these folks, including the supreme leader, I am somehow partly responsible. And then I said to myself, well, what does the Bible say? And then the thing that caught up with me is the story of when they came to capture Jesus at the Garden of Gethsemane, and one of the soldiers was going to take him into custody, and Peter took his sword and struck the guy's ear, and the ear fell to the ground, and Jesus took the ear and fixed it, put it back where it belongs, and then he told Peter, "Sulu pelu ile famoenga, put your sword back into its sheath. Wa ole tango ile pelu, e oti fo ile pelu." He who touches the sword will die by the sword. So right off the bat, Jesus was against violence, justifiable or not. Jesus was a very peaceful person, and to the extent that he's able to restrain people from becoming violent, he was able to do that. And in this particular data point, he fixed the guy's ear, so he was able to heal what was taken by violence. And then the second thing I thought about is when Jesus upgraded the status of violence, when he said, look, you don't have to murder the guy kinetically. You can just think about violence. You can say raka. You can say harbor in your heart violence, and you've already committed violence. So those are the two theaters of violence that came to mind as I sit and watch this bombing of Iran Saturday morning. And wherever you stand on this issue, it's very clear that violence is not tolerated. We are called by Christ to sheath our swords because there is a higher truth that he who lives by the sword will also die by the sword. And then he also upgraded this sense of violence. It's between our hearts. It's in our hearts. We don't have to go to Tehran to commit violence. We can do it here. We can do it here as close as Long Beach. So, onai motu ngā awhanai le mena tupu il vaiaso o mawai. Ono leau te loa o tausanga umalava e lata i le whāse lau tau le lea Samoa recruit mai i le armed forces i Talofa Nua. So, on a per capita basis, e te lea tu nāna i loso se isi lava territory po le stete le uni. So o le winga o lau tala e to tele tama whana o Samoa o lo i tonu vanga au le malo. Mai le pine o na si i leo tūlanga o tātou tangata. E mawhai e tātou o na whautua ina le te leo meo lo tutupu i le lalolangi. So lo talo ia maua pe i tātou le file mu a o whangasolo pea ia taurumanga o le taua i Iran. Paul tato meo te talo. A ie nisi Iranians, a intangata mai Iran e te sila fia. E mana il te mine ne reach out ai, text, emaili. E pe telefoni fo iai. Ia ma moli iai, ia malui puenga. Ono le meo tupu. So it's, I was at an event and one of our leaders was telling me e loa le vale ave uma na mea, which loosely translates to only a fool gives out all of his stuff. And I don't know what he was referring to, but as I reflected on that expression, which is a common expression in our community, Robert, I realized that that expression comes from a place of lack. Because you don't have an unlimited number of stuff, therefore only a fool would give out all of his stuff. And then the second thing I said to myself, it's got to be coming from a philosophy of scarcity. There's just enough to go around, and that's it. And then I said, after double-clicking on it, I said, well, it's got to be something based on the physical reality. When you're talking about moving atoms, there's only a limited number of atoms to go around. And so I said, well, there's truth in that. There's truth in that. But as I reflect more on it, I realize that that only is true in the physical world. But in the world of ideas, in the world of spirits, that is not true. And that it is not foolish for me to give you an idea. It's not foolish for me to give you all of my ideas. In fact, the more I give you, the more you will receive, and I will have it. And then the more you receive, the more you are prompted to give. And then the more you give, the more you receive. And that's the truth in the spiritual world, in the world of ideas, in the world of philosophies. E no fale mo mafofolo loto I le upule nalo datu utunu e lo le vale ave umana mea. Fato a mo ia le upule na in ua faaletino la datu va ai I le manuia o le tua ina ua ngata la datu va ai I Adams. Ai le mo I le upule na pe atu I to whamanino, manulauti, filosofia. O no forolemo o fatia ya waia. Ena, su e lava vaenga o lo wolanga o lo e whaongaina ai le ngana lea. Ia o na whaasa o lea. Ia limiti lava le ngana lea mo me vaia, me Valetino moving atoms. Ia e whalautele ma whaseseina le ngana lea pe a o mai manatu idea. So le whanaunga mawalunga o le malaele nei o le ioto manuia. I mawhauna whaasoa ai to whamanino. Ia whawhataita iai manatu maaikia. A wale manuia o le datu watunu. Po alava me maua I e watu ina. O la utatalo o afo I me maua ina. Ia mai inei. A whawsoa ilo e datu, whawhiuswa I e datu manatu ia. Ona o manatu lo le tu lai me se manuia le I loa mo moe ro datu watunu. Ia maltala muli o mantuaina le tala le naile. Fafine malana tama, matitiva. Fameltala al dinae, umaro lava le falawa lea ma le suau I le fangu. Tasiala ma mea ai le tutoi ia ona mawhiotilo lea. Ia latu le tangata o le tua mawhai atu i le tina tapena mai le suawai. Au mai le falao na whaini poto i areto ma mai le suau ule na. Tapena mai se mea ai maa ua uleiloa. Ia ona tō leo le inati. So manatuale na ana se I tu'u ele neiti na I le physicality I le whaaletino le ua vaai atu ua toe tasi ale poto I areto le ngawhatia le whalaoa le I le whangu. Ia ma le titi fo le suau a tu'u lava I le physicality. Le te tauona whai e la ua le mele na. Ia le welo le leia le tina. I think welo le tina e o tiala ua. Au si mea sia ave il tangata o le tua, ia o si me fasiri le nang. Ia o tato I loa umaltala. Ta penal poto I areto, ta I le sua al whaife au, tangata o le tua. Ia o na tō I lea il tangata o le tua le inati. Mai ele itoe ngao le whangu, sa el suau, le kate fo I sa el whalaoa, tumulava. So manatu e whapenale malaya le nei, e utuvai ma elu tatu atunu u wase Manuia. Ele o Manuia la pe o Manuia lea e sa ili e langi. Manuia le tala noa I ele li I whamai o le, e pe o se vai e puna I lunga I le ola e whapavau. Puna lava. Pero whamu moenga le nao nei malaya. E au tō Manuia. C.S. Lewis said that if you voluntarily accept your suffering, you'll transcend it. E pe o le manatu o le whaife au, a whapea lava e te I lo puapuanga. E whaingatā lava ona e manu malo I lo puapuanga. E talia lo puapuanga ma lo loto atoa, ma lo wanganga atoa. Ina mawhaila ia na transcende o eo puapuanga. Na mawhaila ia ona e lela I loa a o e puapuanga. Ona mawhaila ia ona avea puapuanga ma mafua anga e te manui ai. And I think there's no greater example than the life of Christ. If you look at how he suffered tremendously in the hands of the state, and at some point he voluntarily accepted his suffering. When he was able to do that, he transcended it. So it no longer keeps him down, it no longer bothers him. Because he had voluntarily accepted it. Towards the end of his life, he said, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? And I always think about how we also have access to that scaffolding, Robert. But being was so painful, dying was so excruciatingly painful, that even he started denying his divinity. Even he had problems with his identity. But because he voluntarily received his suffering, accepted his fate, he was able to transcend it. Thank you for spending time with us. If you found this content helpful, please like the video, share it with others, and subscribe to the channel so we can continue bringing these insights directly to you. Yo, Manuia.